That was part of me truly enjoying being a mom. Like I was happy for my baby, I was thankful for my baby, but in terms of the joys, the everyday joy that came with motherhood, it didn't really happen until that, 7th, 8th, 9th month when I felt like I was coming out of that postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. But I also understand that as we're talking, there may be things that come up that may be triggering, and you never know what may happen, in that moment. So I was like, I need to have someone on my team who is trained to deal with mental health and mental wellness triggers and issues and illnesses that come up that I can make an immediate referral to. So that is something that I do tell the moms, even in holding space for them and listening to their stories. But again, when we're thinking about mental health and mental wellness, again, we're kind of taking more of a 360 approach. So we have a model that we call the MOHO model. And so what that does is situates the persons, and it kind of looks as the person is being in dynamic systems, right?
Elle, thanks so much for joining me. I just want to jump in. What do you say?
I say, let's do it.
Let's do it. So, Elle, we've talked about this offline. We were just talking about this, and I was just saying, reading your background, I don't feel like I can give it grace. You're everywhere. You do everything. You're a yoga instructor. You're a pelvic health therapist. You are an educator for infant massage. You are still, I think, currently studying to become an IBCLC. Not
Yes.
many people know like how hard that is. I had looked at it just because I was seeing so many moms in the hospital after birth, and I knew that one of the major things with C-section was that it would if you had a C-section and you really wanted to breastfeed, it made it that much more challenging. And so a lot of those moms would like stop breastfeeding way sooner than moms after vaginal delivery. Not all, but that was like I started going down that path and I was like, oh my gosh, like like it is not an easy certification. So you're doing that as well.
Yes.
I need to understand, like I need to know your background. You're an occupational therapist. How did you
Yes.
get into just this whole world of services that you provide?
Actually, this was birthed out of my own experience with postpartum depression and anxiety. And of course, as occupational therapists, we believe that our health is also determined by our ability to be able to participate in activities that we are expected to do, want to do, or need to do. And not only does that support our physical health, but also our mental health and well being. And so when I was coming through my postpartum recovery, the thing that kind of helped me was actually sewing. So I took sewing classes, like I'm a transplant from Alabama, here in the DMV area. And I took sewing, took a 6 week sewing class when I was pregnant because I didn't know anybody. And that was just a way for me to just get out in the community and trying to meet people. So after that 6 weeks class, I didn't even look at the sewing machine, didn't even think about sewing or anything else. And so fast forward, I had my son and I am going through these postpartum changes. And literally there was a still voice that said, pull out your sewing machine. And I was like, okay. And I just went online, YouTube, and was just trying to find individuals who were offering like beginner sewing, online classes or just had YouTube videos. And I came across a young lady named Mimi. So individuals who know me, they know Mimi is like my sewing idol. And so I started following her classes. And when I started picking up sewing, I noticed that I was sort of making that turn in terms of my postpartum recovery. And so when I went to occupational therapy school, and of course you're trying to decide like what area of practice you want to go into, and I had the opportunity to have one of my fieldwork rotations in a psychosocial setting, in a community-based psychosocial setting, and then it just clicked and I was like, you know what, I can definitely serve moms in this space in terms of maternal mental health. And I just started doing my own just kind of research and just asking moms like what challenges and what concerns do you have, and one of the things that kept coming up was like that social isolation piece. And so again, I was just bringing my own personal experiences. I was like, hey, I think I could put together this sewing group. And I kind of created like this 6 to 8 week format where moms were coming together and they were sewing projects, and those projects were sort of linked to a challenge that often comes with that role transition into motherhood. So Like the first week they would learn how to sew a tote bag. And so we talk about how do we kind of share that responsibility? How do we help lift that load? So when that's what a tote bag does for us, right? It frees up our hands. It helps us to carry whatever load we would have had in our hands. But it's just that tangible reminder for them of how can they pull in their village to kind of help them through those first few months of the postpartum period. And so that's how my journey into women's health began. And I was happy with doing that for a very, very long time. Like, I was like, okay, I would run these groups. I was getting, moms coming to join these groups, and I was happy. And, I would still do my traditional rehab therapy work within the hospital. I was satisfied with that. And then it went to, okay, lactation and breastfeeding. I nursed. I didn't have any challenges with nursing. But again, as I'm going forth with this education and I'm learning, like you say, all the different things and complications that can come with it, I literally just sat on my floor and started bawling, crying because I had a pregnancy that I don't feel like it wasn't. I'm not saying it's traumatic, complicated birth, even though I did have a episode when I thought I was into preterm labor. But besides that, birthing process went well, lactation and breastfeeding went well, and as I'm learning the complications that could come along with it, and knowing that my journey went great, just by my own standards, but just thinking back, like, what if I would have had complications? Would I have known who to reach out to? Did any one of my providers discuss this information with me? And my heart just began to break thinking about all the moms who have had challenges during their pregnancy and postpartum journey. And then it was at that moment I was like, let me figure out what else can I do to kind of support moms and birthing bodies and families in this space. And so I started researching the steps toward becoming an IBCLC. So I'm on that journey, as you mentioned. I went and got postnatal yoga certification as well, and then the infant massage educator certification as well. So it's been quite a journey. It's been the path has just been opening up for me. Even when I did not have a direct path, I just sort of like let the spirit lead whatever it was going to lead me. And I will tell you, it has been a tremendous and wonderful journey. So I am just happy to be here. Again, being able to bring my own personal experiences, but also being able to support others along their journey as well.
You know what, Elle? I honestly, I could probably listen to you forever. And I realized the title of this talk was How Networks Grew My Women's Health Business.
Mhm.
I didn't realize I had invited a network in and of itself. Like, you are
Yeah.
the network. We're going to be talking about like you figured out what you needed and you somehow weave that in to this community that you started. You created a community, but then you found yourself getting all of these different skills and certifications that could give to that community as you started navigating just
Mhm.
life after your own pregnancy, and then also the stories that you would hear.
Yes.
I want to revisit something because I'm a bit sensitive to this now because there's so much I don't know. When it comes to postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety disorders, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, PMADS is what it's like really called now because it
Mhm.
even extends into pregnancy. It also encapsulates those individuals who don't get to go home with their baby. Would you kind of just, if you feel comfortable sharing, just kind of talk about like not having a traumatic birth? When did you start to know you were experiencing these symptoms? You were having these feelings?
Yes, about a month into my postpartum journey. And so one of my taglines, which I stole from a book where it says, "Good moms have scary thoughts." Because within a month of my postpartum journey, I was having thoughts of throwing my baby down the steps, putting my baby in the microwave, like harming my baby. And I knew that I would not do it, but I was just like, where are these intrusive thoughts coming from? Like, I don't have a history of mental health or mental illness. There is no history within my family. So it definitely just rocked me to my core. Um, I didn't tell anyone. My postpartum, what was really, I think, strange to me was that my OBGYN, she did screen me. But the questions at the time, some of the questions that were asked, I was like, well, no, I'm not crying. I haven't lost interest in things that I once enjoyed. So I was answering the questions truthfully, but the assessment tool that was being used did not ask me about intrusive thoughts. And of course, I wasn't going to bring it up because the first thing that came to mind is that if I mention that I am having these intrusive thoughts of harming my baby, someone is going to be in my household starting the process of taking my baby from me. And so I battled with that, and thankfully my mom, she was right there, even though she was in a different state. So it was actually my mom who kind of confronted me about it. She was like, yeah, I think this is just more than the baby blues that you are experiencing. Like, I didn't share with her I was having the intrusive thoughts or anything, but there was something in me that she saw, that she knew this is not my child. And two, this is going beyond those 2 weeks baby blues. And I fought my mom for the longest time. I was like, no, 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 you don't know, what you're talking about. And then we would get off the phone. And then again, I would just, like, I'm getting emotional now thinking about it. I would just break down and start crying because I just felt like I had no one that I can talk to about it. Because I knew that I loved my baby and I just couldn't, fathom the thought that if I share this with someone, I could potentially have my baby taken from me, because motherhood is supposed to be a time in a woman's life that is supposed to be one of the happiest moments in her life, and then you start to also feel guilty thinking about those who have challenges with getting pregnant, or challenges with bringing babies to full term, so you're kind of carrying that weight on your shoulders as well. So about a month into my postpartum journey, I started having those mental health changes. And that went on, like I said, up until about my 6 month period. And, I am a woman of Christian faith. And so I definitely prayed about it. And again, like I said, it was just that still voice that came in one day and said, get your sewing machine out. And so to this day, I'm very happy that I listened to that voice, because, like I said, that was part of my recovery period. That was part of me truly enjoying being a mom. Like, I was happy for my baby, I was thankful for my baby, but in terms of the joys, the everyday joy that came with motherhood, it didn't really happen until that 7th, 8th, 9th month, when I felt like I was coming out of that postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety.
A lot of this, to me now, like just looking at how that journey that you were on, a lot of it just sounds like you started to pull in things into your own health network, your own mental health network, right? You had your
Mhm.
faith, you had your mom, you had sewing, and you were starting to use that avenue, that occupation,
Yes.
right, to clear space for you to heal. And so you were creating a network before, even you said occupational therapy school. You
Yes.
had not even chosen the field of occupational therapy, and you were already creating these avenues that you would later use in your own business.
Yes.
I guess my
Absolutely.
question, like from that, and this is not really the focus of this talk, but I'm just is like hitting so hard for me right now because um, we encounter these stories and we really don't know what to do with them, of moms who have gone and harmed themselves and harmed their babies, and we don't
Mhm.
really know how to respond to it as a society.
Yes.
Like, even now, like, I had an occupational therapist in my audience when I was doing one of these, and I remember looking at her comment saying, let's talk about the mom. um, at that point, I think it was in Connecticut. She was a postpartum nurse who had, unfortunately killed her 3 babies,
Mhm.
and her baby being 8 months at that time, and I think her oldest was 5. And I saw the comment, and I just didn't address it. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't really even know what to say. We still don't know what to say. And so, in terms of, like, even just getting out of that, when you look back, or if you've encountered moms in your practice where you can start to see signs, what is the space that you've created now for those moms that you've learned from your own experience and then your clinical experience as well?
Absolutely. One, we always hear the term holding space for moms. And I always tell them, I'm a safe space for you. And as we're talking about creating these networks, even though I'm able to kind of hold space for them because of my own personal experience, I also understand that I don't have the skill set to deal with the mental health and wellness side of that transition. And so I actually, within my group, even though, because I do run a virtual support group as well, but I also have a psychosocial practitioner on my team. And that was one of the things when I was doing my sewing group. I realized, yes, I'm bringing these women together and I'm creating a community. But I also understand that as we're talking, there may be things that come up that may be triggering, and you never know what may happen, in that moment. So I was like, I need to have someone on my team who is trained to deal with mental health and mental wellness triggers and issues and illnesses that come up that I can make an immediate referral to. So that is something that I do tell the moms, even in holding space for them and listening to their stories. I also let them know that if there is a concern, I just want you to know that I am going to make a referral just for safety, because as you said, sometimes we never know just because they're coming in my space and I'm creating a safe space for them, I don't know what they're returning to in their home environment. And so, in letting them know that I will make the referral, I also let them know that, again, that does not mean that someone is going to be, CPS is going to be knocking at your door, creating, any trouble or problems, anything for you. But it really is just making sure that I am doing my best to create wraparound services for you. And individuals whom I have chosen to partner with them with, they are not ones that are immediately going to the worst of the worst in thinking. They are really coming in to touch bases with you, to tap in with you, to find out what your needs are, and to get those resources in place for you. Because oftentimes that's just what it boils down to, is just making sure that the individual has the appropriate and timely resources needed to support them through that role transition.
So early on in your business, you brought in a psychotherapist, a psychiatrist, or a
No, no, no. One of my networks is a social worker who specializes in maternal mental health, and then I also have a psychologist on who I have formed a network with as well.
amazing. Okay. And so early on, you had these two entities that could address a lot of the social dynamics, a lot of
Mhm,
the environmental things, maybe relationships that was impacting this person's sense of their safety.
mhm.
Then you also had a therapist, a licensed therapist that could prescribe or at least conduct those evaluations, right? That you couldn't do, and a lot with occupational therapy. I mean, I'm learning still so much about this field, but a lot of what you do as an occupational therapist and encompasses mental health, does it
Yes,
not?
yes, it actually does. But again, when we're thinking about mental health and mental wellness, again, we're kind of taking more of a 360 approach. So we have a model that we call the MOHO model, and so what that does is situates the persons, and it kind of looks as the person is being in like in dynamic systems, right, in environments that's ever. And so we're creating this occupational profile about them. We're learning about their background. We're learning about what their supports are. And through that interview and creating that occupational profile, it's very interesting that you'll learn that this person is very successful work, but then at home, they feel like they're just falling completely apart. But that's when we're able to kind of look at what are some of the activities and the task demands that is placed in front of that individual. What resources do they have in front of them in order for them to meet that task demand or that activity demand? And then again, that's how we just plug in the resources that they need. And so we're looking at the individual holistically, right? We're looking at them as, again, like dynamic individuals that's influenced by internal and also external factors. And a lot of times, if we can get those external things in place, they start to shift things internally, where now this person is starting to have some improved thoughts of self-efficacy about themselves, right? Because they now have the tools to be able to do the things that they need to do to support themselves. So I think that's what our training as occupational therapists, sort of like in that mental health, wellness, psychosocial support space, that's what it allows us to do, because we've always approached things with a holistic lens, and we remove, the diagnosis from the individual, and again, we see them as them and how they situate within their environment, and looking at some of the supports and barriers to either support them, toward their goals, or their identified roles, or again, those that either, or those things that are presenting as barriers, and we try to bridge that gap between
Before I move into your business, you could just caught my attention. What do you mean you remove the diagnosis from the individual?
them. Because I mean, because we know that we can have individuals with the same diagnosis, but they present totally different. Right. So if we take those textbook symptoms and some of how they present, and we just slap that label on individuals, then we're automatically limiting them. So if I have someone, who may have a diagnosis, that's just like, if we're talking about our neuro patients. So just because I have someone who has a diagnosis of a CVA, or have right hemiplegia or hemiparesis, and we know they're going to present with, right side paralysis or weakness, if patient A is functioning this way, and we know that this is some of how things commonly present themselves, and we slap that on everyone else, then what we're going to start doing is putting the same interventions for these individuals, and then we're going to be expecting this particular outcome, and then we're going to be wondering why we're not seeing the same results in person B that we may be seeing in person A. So that whole individualized approach to our care, it carries over into, it carries over outside of our traditional rehab models of care. So I tell individuals, use the diagnoses, yes, to identify how deficits may present, but don't use that to put a cap on the individual of what they can and cannot do. But instead, use that as a way for you to start thinking about interventions that you can put into place to trial with them. And then again, if it don't work, then we just move on to the next thing. So I tell patients all the time, you are not your diagnosis. Okay. Your diagnosis is just there to identify what resources may be available to you. That's it. Simple. Does not define what you can and cannot do. It does not define what limits that you have. It is strictly a way for us to identify what, things that are accessible and available to you within our healthcare system, or maybe within our social system. So once we identify what this comes with just having a diagnosis, that's fine and great. But I am concerned about you as the individual. What is it that you want to do? And we are going to make sure that we do things to help support you to getting into the things that you want to do, and not just do them. Because one of the things that we also talk about too in occupational therapy is that we may be able to get clients to do things, but are they doing them satisfactorily? Right? Because we all have a vision of how we want to be able to do things. And if it looks a lot different than what it did pre-diagnosis or pre-injury, then that individual may not want to implement that strategy or use that assistive device or that durable medical equipment. So those are the two things that I like to check in with my patients about. Not only am I supporting you, am I putting the appropriate interventions in place, but once we put them in place, how satisfied are you with the way that you're now able to engage and do the things that you desire to do? So those are just my two main checkpoints as I'm working with individuals on my caseload or within my practice.
You know, I'm going to have to just use this for a commercial break. So, so Elle, what I do, and what people don't realize, a lot of this probably changed about a month ago. Something like kind of clicked, and I said, I have to actually start doing this live. I have to do it across every platform I could. For whatever reason, I can't figure out Instagram, but that's another story. But this is being streamed across LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, several Facebook accounts, and Twitter. And what I have figured out is right now I'm trying to do something very, very quickly, and I need a network. And I created a business on top of another business I had already
Mhm.
created to just be Pelvic Health Network to figure out how could I get people in the room, interview them, and see if I can just have someone on my team.
Mhm.
Because the problem I was trying to solve is the exact problem you were just explaining, is that you don't kind of consider people as their diagnosis. Do
Mhm.
you know how groundbreaking that is for me? I am trying to get occupational therapists, and I say this publicly across
Mhm.
all 4 platforms, 8 different accounts. I say this publicly when I tell people that, yes, I'm invested in both disciplines, being in the room after a person gives birth, just like we would after someone has an elective surgery, like a knee replacement or hip replacement. When I try to get both disciplines in the room, I think if I only had to have one, if I only had to have a rehabilitation therapist that can evaluate a mom to see what are all the things that we as a medical team are missing for this person. Who do I want in that room? Because you guys are making the decision for me. You're saying that your hospitals are limited, your staff is
Mhm.
short, you have caseloads that can't accommodate the maternal population. So who is in the room doing that evaluation? And what I'm running up into when I say occupational therapists, because they always are, they're my primary therapist that I want in the room. In the case of someone who just gave birth, what I find is that they're asking me, where's the evidence? What is
Mhm.
the justification for my evaluation? And I say, your evaluation.
Yeah.
Your evaluation justifies you being in the room because you're determining at that point what that mom needs that we can't see on the medical team. We don't know what their environment is like. We don't know what their social situation or their relationship is. There domestic violence,
Mhm.
right? Is there home barriers that's going to put them at risk of falling if they lost a significant amount of blood? So for you to say you don't treat the diagnosis, you treat the person.
Mhm.
That's my commercial break, y'all. We're right back to the episode. Thank you so much. Oh, I want to talk about your business
Mhm.
because to me, I learned very quickly as a pelvic health therapist the road to burnout.
Yes.
All right. I wanted to be all things to all people. Like I figured if I'm gonna, start a business, and I wanted to do doula work. I was
Mhm.
also going to offer house cleaning services. I don't know how I was going to do that. A little bit of childcare, sibling support. I was going to do everything
Mhm.
in my business. And I said, oh my goodness, this is not sustainable financially. I
Mhm.
could not grow because I can't see so many people doing all those things.
Mhm.
How early in your business did you learn, I need to partner with you, I need to partner with you, I need to partner with you? When did it start?
After year, I was, you know what? I was after year one. All right. And I know as solopreneurs, you always hear, oh, it's going to take time to grow your business. I totally, yep, absolutely accept that. Because I gave myself 5 years for my business to at least bring in half of my desired yearly income. And so, and I took those 5 years and I said, I want to take 5 years because, when we go to school, the business side of things is not what our program teaches us. And so I wanted to have the time to learn the business without the stress of, I need to have this many people on caseload. I need to see this many people a week in order for me to make this desired income. So I didn't want that stress, but I also wanted the time to also remain in the hospital as well, because I will say, going into private practice, I was like, okay, I'm just going to work with this population. So the maternal population is still the population. That's my primary population that I serve in my private practice. But staying in the hospital also keeps me in line and in check and up to date on other populations that benefit from the services that I am offering to the maternal population. So, two of the services that I provide through my business is pelvic floor therapy and also infant massage. So, from those two services, not only can I see the mom in the birthing body, I can see the partner because the partner may have some pelvic floor. Also, the partner may want to be involved in the infant massage. grandparents. So we see individuals across the lifespan in pelvic health. So um, that is what I was thinking in terms of like, what my business? How can I support this? Why am I staying in the hospital? Why am I not doing my business full time? And I actually like that balance. So for me, it wasn't truly a rush to really just be 100% all in as a entrepreneur. So it took me about a year though still to realize that I needed to form these networks. Even though I'm taking this time to grow my business, to learn about my business, I still want to grow my caseload. And if I'm splitting my time between two settings, then that's also taking time away from me being able to market my business as well. And so within a year, I was like, okay, what partnerships can I form? But when it comes to networking, one thing I like individuals to know is if you're going to be networking, it definitely needs to be beneficial to you because we can go to all these networking events, we can have all of these create some of these partnerships or these network opportunities and they're not the outcome that we're needing to grow our practices. And so, just like we do a needs assessment, so we are starting our business, like we want to make sure that there is a need in this area, right? You also need to be doing the needs assessments on the individuals or the organizations that you're trying to form these network partnerships with. And so for me, we have two hospital systems where I am. They offer pelvic floor therapy services. So, what am I offering that's different? Yes, I can say I am providing concierge services where I'm able to see individuals when they're in their home. So, that was one thing I can say. Also, I can say my availability, because I am growing my practice, I have more immediate availability. But the one thing for me, when it comes to at least the pelvic health side of my business, that really I feel like was like the ticker for me is that I accept Medicaid. Um, and in an area where I am, I tell people all the time where I live here in Virginia is a transient area. It's a mix where you got like the urban, suburban, and then you have the rural. And so you have a mix of socioeconomic status, but there is a good percentage of individuals where Medicaid is their health payer. And so, checking the two hospital systems, yes, they take Medicaid, but again, when you think about wait times to get in to see a pelvic floor therapist, have the availability. So when I'm forming my networks and I'm reaching out and I'm like, yes, this is what I offer, that is one of the things that I lead with. I am also a credentialed Medicaid provider. So if you have patients whose healthcare is covered through Medicaid, I have immediate availability. This has allowed me to not only just reach out to the hospital network systems, but also to the community based clinics. Those have Medicaid, they're being seen for a lot of their primary care services. So I'm able to reach out to those organizations and to market my business as well. And that is something I had never ever thought that I would do. I just figured I would put myself out there. This is the service I'm offering. People are just going to flood my business, and that is not what happened. So yeah, so within a year I realized that I needed to step out and create these networks and these partnerships, but in doing that I had to create, do that needs assessments within those partnerships and identify what can I offer, but then again what can I also offer them, because I never wanted to be a I'm just trying to get from you. So even when I'm doing that needs assessments and I'm reaching out, I always end my introduction or my email or my letter in saying, please don't hesitate to let me know how I too can support your business, your practice, and your organization. And that's whether it's coming to do a lunch and learn talk. That's whether or not, do I have scholarships available for maybe some of the other services that I offer through my practice, like the infant massage class, the postnatal yoga. So I'm always, in addition to trying to create that partnership and that network, I'm also asking how can I also support what you got going on as well.
Okay, so if I take the biggest chunk from what you just said,
Mhm.
you didn't create a website and then voila, people were just flooding your
Yeah.
practice. You didn't get credentialed with Medicaid and people just were flooding your practice. Is that right?
Absolutely
You
not. That's correct.
you building your business, you were still working for a hospital. I don't wanna assume outpatient-based
Yes.
clinic,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And that allowed you to see the clientele and kind of see, while simultaneously building your business, where you could fill, like,
Yes.
what areas. You didn't completely, like, cut yourself off, because I have a
Mhm.
lot of therapists, an OT right now who actually asked me, I'm PRN at a hospital, but I also wanna build my maternal health business. Like, what should I be doing? Should I be focusing on one thing? You were simultaneously still working for that hospital, but still embedded in the community, starting to build your practice slowly, which is how you're
Mhm.
supposed to do it if you are self-funding, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And so you started to network, lunch and learns, you were getting out in the community, you were writing emails, and you were providing enough information that the businesses that you were networking with knew that you could probably provide some type of value to them first.
Yes.
You weren't just
Mhm.
asking for referrals.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you say you did a needs assessment, I wanna break that down a little bit further, because I'm trying to understand, because that a needs assessment, I think of very, like, therapeutic, clinical. When you
Mhm.
did a needs assessment on those businesses, what exactly did that look like? So if I was wanting to partner with a doula or partner with a midwife, one of my largest referral sources was actually a lactation consultant.
Mhm.
How did you go about determining their needs? What did
Mhm.
that look like for you?
Absolutely. As we say, we fake hustle or social media hustle and research on people. That's what you do. I went onto their websites, and I looked at what services were they offering. Not even just the services that they were offering. What days of the week? What were their times? Know, fit this in, because it may have been a clinic that was maybe open just Monday through Thursday. Okay, well, patients may want to be seen on Friday and Saturday. Do I have that availability to see patients on Fridays and Saturdays? Absolutely. And so you kind of go through, I think it's the SOAR needs assessments, where you kind of look for strengths and opportunities and things like that. So that's essentially what I did. I just went onto the websites to see what services are they offering. Not only the services, when are they offering the services? Looking at what are their payment structures? How who's on staff. Is there an opportunity to maybe partner with me? How can I discuss and maybe just kind of sell the benefits of what I can bring to their practice, and then just reaching out to see if I can just schedule a meeting, not even a lengthy meeting, a 5 or 10 minute meeting, just to kind of share, maybe just even drop off some literature about who I am. And sometimes it's just being able to put a face with a name, because I did try, sending out the letters, and I know organizations and companies get letters all the time, mail all the time. So I did that as well. And then I did, just like I said, a follow up, reach out. Hi, I'm new to the community. I just want to stop by and introduce myself and hand deliver, some of that literature. So I think just taking the time out to go and visit the business. Again, letting them know in their face, hey, I'm here to support you as well. I love the work that you're doing in the community. So it's almost just like you're going on an interview, right? So you want to go have the interview, you're sitting in front of the interviewer, and you want them to know that you've researched their company as well. You understand what their company is doing. And this is how you can support their mission vision as well. So um, that's essentially what I did. I just kind of looked up, stalked, I guess, if that's the term you want to use. And again, just figured out, like, what were their strengths, what were my strengths, what were areas of opportunities and growth for them, what are areas and opportunities and growth for me, and how can we match those up, so that we can continue to both meet the missions and the vision of our organizations, whether we do it collaboratively together and maybe create a project together that we're running, or again, how can we support one another in each of those spaces? You're on mute.
Elle, did you ever encounter anyone that you were not a match for?
Not, you know what? I don't think so. I don't think I ever got that vibe that I wasn't. a match. But of course, you know, like when you do the call and you're like, hey, I just want to come by because I never just want to pop up. Like I never want to do that. And you
Yeah, but,
kind of
like,
get to know,
after
oh
after, like,
well,
talking to them, like, did you ever this is why I, like, have to put myself on mute because I just wanna, like, "Wait a second. You just said something," interrupt people. So, I really I wanna kind of go down this a little bit further. What did you
mhm,
ever, when you were building your network, have a conversation and said, "We're not a good fit. We're probably not compatible."
no. Because like I said, I think
Really?
I've just been very intentional of who I reach out
So you
because I
had done
watched from
so
side.
much work where you were like, I wanna work with this person, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna do everything I can to make sure that this collaboration happens somehow.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say the collaborations didn't always happen, but not because it wasn't a good fit, but it was also understanding that and respecting what they had going on as well. Because sometimes you can still link up with individuals. You all are passionate about wanting to do something together and do the work, but because you have other things on your plate and this is a priority, like their priority for their business right now. And then but the door was always open, like, okay, when the time is right and when you're ready, I definitely let's circle back to each other and let's see if we can get this thing going. So I'm for me, I'm very intentional about who I reach out to. And by the time I've reached out to them, I've been following for a while. I've been watching what they've been doing for a while. And then, ironically, when we do make that connection, they give me that same feedback. They're like, "Yeah, I've been watching you." For a while because again I want to make sure that the time that's being invested to form this partnership or this even just create this network that it is not time wasted. And so that sometimes require before just jumping out because sometimes we do maybe we may see some individuals or we may hear about them we're like wow that's some really good work that they're doing, but because we haven't really done the time to really look into and research exactly what it is that they're doing, we may just reach out. And then that's when I find sometimes that may end up like, maybe this is not a good fit. So I kind of, before I reach out to them and kind of look to make sure that this is a good fit because I also don't want to waste their time because just them entertaining, my inquiry is time taken away from what it is that they have going on in their lives. So I always want to be respectful of people's time. I'm almost
Right.
strategic when I reach out.
Okay, so let's talk about this because I need to recap. My brain just is like, if I, like, move like a train, I'm gonna miss really key critical things that you were saying. You first started out this story, like, sharing, your postpartum experience and how that led you to developing several skills, starting with
Mhm.
sewing, right? Which you then turned around and you taught that skill of sewing to moms, specifically moms early on in their postpartum journey. And so you spent a lot of time, even through going through OT school, which you chose to do after you had after you gave birth. You were in a period of skill development. You were honing your own
Mhm.
skills, right?
Yes.
Dabbling
Yes.
and teaching and sharing those skills, but it wasn't necessarily thinking, I want to have a business, right? I want to
Mhm.
grow a business in this. Were you already thinking that before OT school?
No, I was not. It was again when I went to OT school, it was, how can I serve in the mental health and wellness space and facilitate definitely falls within the scope of our practice as occupational therapists. And so that's how I again just got into the mindset. Okay, it was really just about tapping into moms or birthing individuals saying, I feel socially isolated during that role training.
But that was after you did a rotation field work in a
Mhm,
mental health
mhm,
environment that you knew you wanted to work with the maternal health population. You already knew that.
mhm. Yeah.
That just, like, opened up an avenue for, "This is how I'm gonna do it."
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So you focused on skill development, and then you were able to network with other providers who had to fill in
Yes.
what you couldn't do.
Yes.
Here's my question. Who's that team? You already talked about, social work, psychotherapy.
Mhm.
What other networks did you form to build your business?
I have a Reiki. I have actually a Yoni provider, Yoni steam provider, doulas, of course, host of IBCLC, CLC, CBSs. Um, have a yoga studio, so an owner of a yoga studio. Other infant massage instructors, and actually a young lady who is in the process of midwifery school. So, yes, so those are sort of like the primary team players. But also, when we think about those wrap around services, I tell individuals look outside of what we consider medical providers. Your local library, look and see what type of early literacy programs that they have, preschool programs, because again, that gets moms, families out of the house in community, in connection with other families. I also say let's look at parks and recreations. What is going finding out what's going on. I've an active person, but it wasn't until I became a mom that those were resources that I was looking into myself, because I was just looking for an outlet. And so I was trying to grasp and hold on to every little thing that I could, to where I felt like, one, I could get outside of the house, two, I can meet other individuals who were in that same life cycle as I was. And so those are, so whether or not I know someone directly at that local library or in the parks and recreations, I still consider my network. So just those unconventional things that we don't often think about in terms of supporting our mental health and our physical health and well-being. Those are things that I always try to keep my mind thinking about. What else? What's next? Even just some side conversations, um, when I am in groups with people and I'm learning about, oh, what supported them. And I will add that to my resource list as well, because as a community based provider, yes, I feel like there is some reliance on the medical care system that needs to be there. But most often, individuals want to receive service in their community. And so those are the networks and those are the resources that I am looking to partner with, to connect with, and add to my resource list.
Okay, so you had one foot in the hospital because you wanted to see what the gaps in care were,
Mhm.
right? Where you could fill for those patients as you were building your community-based business, right? Because you knew, okay, if they're not getting this amount of care here, I could provide it out here.
Mhm.
All right, infant massage, yoga, um, outlets for them to use in terms of their mental health, their wellness, all of that. So my question to you is, in the community, you
Mhm.
were also doing this same assessment, were you not? You were
Yes.
you were looking at gaps in the community that you could fill in
Mhm.
unconventional ways.
Mhm.
So, were you getting referrals mostly from medical providers or from all of these different areas? Who was your main referral source?
The community-based organizations.
What I feel like we just this is a masterclass for me. I mean, I honestly, I mean, I'm probably gonna use it. Um, we'll
Say
probably
it
use
again.
this interview because most people can't dig through lives and just get this kind of gold unless they're really looking for it and they know this is gold. I have to ask you, so in building your business, did you intentionally know medical providers were not going to be your main like pool to network with? Did you
Yeah.
already know going into business that you were going to go right into the community and pull from those resources?
Yes. Because even before going into school as an occupational therapist, I've just always been a socially minded individual. I've always recognized that healing and recovery has always come through community. And so it was I wasn't like realizing, okay, most of my referrals is not going to come from the medical system. So that was easy for me to grasp and move on, and to realize that, hey, I really need to be reaching out to the communities. And when we think about it, where are these individuals spending most of their time anyway? In the community. We're in the hospital for acute reasons, which a short amount of time. So they're not in the hospital for a long time. So why would I expect for most of my referrals um, to come from the hospital system? I want to go to, um, I'm in the hospital. My primary focus is my illness. Okay, I've gone to the hospital. They've addressed my illness. And then I'm out. The community is where we are to maintain our wellness. So I am going to the yoga studio 3 to 5 times a week. I am going to the chiropractor twice a week. I am going to my gym 5 days a week. I am going to my mom's group, the MOPS, moms of preschoolers. I'm going to that group, whatever the frequency is. So I need to be making connections with those groups, peoples, and organizations who is encountering these individuals on a more frequent basis. And so like I said, I've always known that. I think it was easy for me to just kind of reach out and identify those organizations and know that I really needed to make that connections within the community and not so much heavily rely on the medical system to be the primary source of my referrals. I'm still grateful for those, because I am slowly seeing a shift, because as our medical system becomes weaker and weaker, got to figure out how can we provide these services to individuals. And, I'm slowly seeing the shift in the recognition of community
Mhm.
that has to come from a licensed medical provider, but definitely an individual with a certification or with training in some aspect of health and wellness.
Elle, you probably have heard me say this because this is now our third, like, kind of like true live interaction with one another. And so I'm constantly looking for people who can help me fill out areas that I can't quite like reach. I started my business kind of more with the focus of bringing occupational and physical therapy into the hospitals.
Mhm.
You and I both know a mom can be in the hospital as little as 24 hours.
Yes.
Very rare that she's there for longer than 3 days.
Yes.
She is in the community faster than our acute care therapist can get to her,
Yes.
right? Even if it is going home with a C-section or a cesarean hysterectomy, that one eval that they do, that they may get to do, goes only so far. It's out of mind. She's not thinking about it. She can't even comprehend if it was a major surgery that she wasn't expecting. It's not even there, right? And so I knew that I was creating a business that was very, very likely going to run into a bigger problem, extending those services into the community. And so what I have now is this gap that we don't have enough providers to fill, right? We don't have enough pelvic health providers who are openly saying, I will see you within the first 3 days of you going home, because they're thinking, well, I can't do an internal assessment. What am I going to do? And I hate to judge. I mean, I know I'm going to get flack for this, but I'm sorry. Your patients have told me, right? Right? Our clients have told us the experience of going to a pelvic health therapist who is like, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing. I think it's too soon to see you. You need rest. And that's the last thing that person needs to be told if they're feeling anxious, right? If they're not being told about, assessing their own vital signs and making sure that they're okay and they're getting the support. They don't need to be told, oh, you need rest, when they're up and down in the middle of the night and they're feeling heaviness and they're feeling all these things, right? They actually need support, right? They need that kind of connection, that community connection. And so right now I am on a hunt, a vicious hunt, to find or either to train providers who can fill this space in the home. And what you described today is building and growing your business through networks of providers that were not on the medical team per se. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that because what I find in working with OBGYNs, especially those who say, well, we'll follow up with them for 6 to 8 weeks, but we generally don't see them after 8 weeks. Those are not the referral partners that I necessarily want on my team. And here's why. They don't know the long-term journey of that patient. They're less likely to think, I need to even be on the team in the first place in the first 6 to 8 weeks because they've got it. They're handling it. If that person comes back with incontinence or a pelvic floor dysfunction, they're more likely to refer to me. But now what have you done? You've given me someone with trauma after being ignored, and now they're worse off than when if they would have been referred to me earlier. So I don't want an OBGYN, necessarily being my main referral source because they're too late. And so for you, I really want to ask, because I do this now, I'm actually holding live interviews of people I want to work with, people I want to network with. So my question to you, and the last question is this, Elle, could you, with the knowledge that you have, teach a therapist, especially if they're acute care or hospital based, or they're, doing W-2, they've been kind of tied ball and chain to someone paying them for their services, dictating who they can see and who they can treat. If they wanted to create a business or grow a business or start something, could you, even what you did today in this interview, you already did, but I need to ask you formally, could you teach them how to start the process of building and creating a community-based business that serves the maternal population?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because as I mentioned, even just in my discussions with other clinicians who have started, a lot of us have started this out of our own personal experience. And so that's the first thing that I always ask people: tap into um, the area of practice that you want to go into. I'm almost certain that you wanted to go into this because of some personal experience, whether it's directly your experience or a family member. And I want you to tap into that. And I want you to identify what need that you have that you feel like was not met through all of the systems that you have been educated, indoctrinated to meet your need, but they didn't. Start there. That is your starting. That is your starting point. And then once you start there, again, identify what your strengths are in terms of setting up your business. You definitely have some weaknesses. I don't like the term weaknesses. We're going to say areas of growth, opportunities for growth. Identify what your opportunities of growth areas are, and identify those individuals who can kind of step into that space to kind of help you grow in that area. And I feel like if you take that simplistic approach, it takes away the stress that you feel like you need to know everything about running a business. No, you don't need to know everything about running a business. You just need to know how to tap into the resources that you need and be willing to relinquish when it comes to your businesses. Because again, I know in terms of the accounting side of it, yes, I know what money is coming in, I know what money is coming out, but I don't want to be responsible for that. I'm going to hire the individual. In marketing, like just really, really, really hard, that true marketing, that's not a strength of mine. Like I said, I can get out there and I can reach out to individuals and create that social network, but the marketing piece, I know that's not a strength of mine. So I need to bring that individual on my team. So yes, I feel like that if someone wants to do this, I can definitely support them in that journey. I feel I can give them a wealth of information for them to take it, and if they implement it, they should be seeing the desired results that they have for themselves and also for their business.
The only thing I'll say, and I'll close with this because I always get the last word, is that the marketing that you described, Elle, completely, that's what was filling your doors.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's all different types of marketing, but you were marketing. You were you were researching the people that you wanted in your network. You were making connections. You were getting into their network because they're only bringing in people they trust, because now that's their reputation. If you're, a sour apple, right? You were marketing, right? And that's probably the biggest thing. If you're building a program in a hospital that you work for, or one that you don't, or in a community where the people are you want to serve, building those relationships is key.
Mhm.
I mean, I can only teach this so far, which is why I'm looking for people to kind of like fill out the areas I can't fill, right? Every community is different. And you said you were a transplant from Alabama and now in the Virginia area.
Yes.
So a little bit more, I guess, near city, metropolitan.
You
Say that again.
said where I am in Virginia. Am I in the
Yeah.
metro area? No, I'm
You're
outside.
in rural. You're in the rural area.
I would consider it. It's becoming less rural, but yes, yes,
Excellent. And so you basically feel at this point you can teach someone how to at least build the foundation,
yes,
right?
absolutely. As long as they're willing to do the work and take the no's that comes with the yes, absolutely.
Oh, the no's are just they light me up, because I know this this needs to go back to the drawing board, be improved, and go at it again. When a therapist tells me that they got a no for starting a program that offers OT services or PT services to women in the hospital, and then they stop because they got a no, deep down inside, I I really I want to praise them, because that no is actually needed, right? That
Hmm.
persistence, right, that you need to figure out how to get to that yes, that I can't teach, right? I can't teach that. I can't teach you to be persistent. You have to have it. And so, honestly, this has been great. I feel like I I've gotten a little bit of a master class myself. I'm hoping that anyone who's listening to this can, one, know first and foremost the best way to get in contact with you if they have questions of just getting started.
Hmm.
Getting started with a side hustle, if they're already, working, but they want to start building their job just like you did, building your business, not your job, but building a business with networks. What's the best way that they can get in touch with you to consult, to mentor, and to even learn from you if you're offering that?
Absolutely. You can always, I give this number out. So please feel free to call me, leave a voicemail because it actually converts it over to a text message if I don't answer. 401 You can call me. I will return calls no later than 48 business hours. You can contact me on Instagram, which my name here on the screen, just put a at symbol in front of it, and you can find me on Instagram. You can reach me on my website, occupationaltransitions.com. So there you will find all of the different services that I offer under that umbrella, that business umbrella. And just email me at LLE at occupational transitions with the S .com. So either one of those ways you can reach me and I will get back to you definitely no later than 48 business hours.
And I'm finding I'm growing quite a network, a very profitable network on LinkedIn. And I've been really open about this. That is a platform I have not tapped into. You're on LinkedIn as well. Is that right?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. But admittedly, not active, real active on there. But yes, I have a profile.
A lot of us aren't, I'm finding. I'm just gonna leave you with this, right? LinkedIn, because of the work that I'm doing, is putting me in connection with leaders in hospital systems. That will always kind of be my bread and butter, because I feel like the best value starts upstream.
Yes.
And what better value to be at bedside with a mom who wasn't expecting a major abdominal surgery like a C-section, right? And so I always will have that as my bread and butter. But
Mhm.
these connections that I'm starting to make now across LinkedIn and then into other platforms, they're actually getting me in with the people who are solving the biggest issue. And that's in the community. Elle, that's you. That is you. I have publicly found my next instructor. Thank you so much for this interview.
You're
We will be
welcome.
talking. I need you to stay on with me because we will be talking. I need to hash this out. You've given me so much. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.